Homeowners over 50 are worth 40 times more than renters. Not 40%, 40 times. And the gap is accelerating. So if you're over 50 and the numbers don't feel like they add up, well, that's why. Most people think that the gap is about discipline, saving harder, making better choices. Well, it's not. Nobody's showing you what actually is driving it. There are three forces closing in on our generation right now: policy pressure, AI acceleration, and aging costs. Well, that's what makes this different from anything our parents face. Well, I track where policy, AI, and aging collide. That's where families either catch changes early or get blindsided. I started paying attention after watching this hit my own family. I'll show you what's creating the gap and the one decision that changes where your family lands. Well, the first force is policy, and the math is moving against you. Social Security trust funds hits the wall 2033. Well, that's not a projection from some think tank. That's the 2025 Trustees Report, the official government document. When those reserves run out, benefits drop to 77 cents on the dollar. Not might drop by law. So let me make that real. If you're expecting $2,500 a month from Social Security, you get $1,925 instead. That's a $575 a month gone. Almost $7,000 a year just vanished. Well, here's what most people don't know. If you're still working while collecting Social Security before full retirement age, you hit the earnings test. In 2026, if you earn more than, let's say, $24,480, Social Security withholds $1 for every $2 you earn over the limit. So you take a job to make ends meet, you earn $35,000, that's about $10,500 over the limit. Social Security withholds over $5,000 from your benefits that year. You worked more, you got less. Nobody warned you. Medicare Part B premiums just rose to $202.90 a month for 2026. Well, that's up almost $18 from last year, and that's just the premium. The Part A hospital deductible is now $1,736 per benefit period. And if you're in and out of the hospital twice in 1 year, you pay that deductible twice. Well, the safety net your parents counted on is buckling under the weight of 70 million people trying to use it at once. So that's the policy side, and that's just one of three. The second force is technology, and it's accelerating the gap faster than anything else. Wealth is concentrating faster than any time in history. $84 trillion is moving from one generation to the next. That's not a typo. 84 trillion, the largest wealth transfer in human history. And it's not following evenly. Those who adapt to the new technology get richer, and those who don't get left behind faster than ever before. The MIT Age Lab calls it the intergenerational equity gap in AI access. Here's what that means in plain English. Your neighbor who figured out how to use AI to manage their portfolio, optimize their taxes, catch billing errors, they're pulling ahead. Not because they're smarter, because they're using tools you haven't touched yet. So the Vanguard data shows average retirement savings of $272,600 for people 65 and older. But here's the problem. That's the average. The median is only $88,000, about $500. The gap between average and median tells you something. A small group has a lot. Most people have much less than the average suggests. Technology is accelerating that split every single day. That's a technology side. Now here's the one that hits closest to home. The third force is aging. And this is where the numbers get personal. Fidelity estimates the average couple needs $345,000 just in health care in retirement. So let me say that again, $345,000 just for medical expenses. And that does not include long-term care. Medicare says it clearly on their own website. Quote, Medicare doesn't pay for long-term care. Long-term care means helping with dressing, bathing, eating, and getting out of bed. The stuff that happens when you can't fully take care of yourself anymore. A nursing home costs over $10,900 a month for a private room. That's the national median in 2025. In some states, it's worse. Alaska, it's over $31,000 a month. Oregon, it's over $17,600 a month. That's not a typo. Over $31,000 a month. 1 year in a nursing home can cost more than most people have saved for their entire retirement. And here's a part that changes the math for families. Many women become widows in their late 50s or early 60s. When that happens, household income doesn't just dip, it collapses. So one MarketWatch reader wrote last month, household income, $180,000 a year. If he dies first, his wife dropped to $70,000. That's a 61% pay cut overnight, with the same mortgage, the same bill, the same life. That's not a spreadsheet problem. That's standing in the kitchen wondering, how are you going to keep the house? Social Security survivor benefits help, but they don't replace two incomes with one income. And if that surviving spouse needs long-term care in 10 years, at $10,000 a month, $88,000 in median retirement savings lasts about 8 months. If that number scares you, well, it should give you clarity. Because now you know the math, and knowing the math is where the power starts. These aren't three separate problems. They're one collision, and it's hitting families like yours and mine right now. You see, if you're thinking, well, this is a lot, here's where it gets useful. You didn't miss something. The rules changed, and nobody told you. A 40-year career with one company, gone. The pension that guaranteed income for life, gone for most workers. AARP says it directly. For most people today, pensions are a relic of the past. In 1980, 38% of private sector workers had a pension. By 2020, it was down to 15%. So that's not a small shift. That's a floor disappearing. The predictable healthcare cost, well, that's gone. In 2000, the average couple needed about $135,000 for healthcare in retirement. Today, it's $345,000. That's a 155% increase in 25 years. So your savings didn't grow 155%, but your healthcare costs did. Social Security has a guaranteed safety net. Well, that's buckling. In 1960, there were 5 workers paying into a system for every 1 person receiving benefits. Today, it's 2.7 workers per beneficiary, and it's dropping. The math doesn't work. It's not opinion. That's just arithmetic. And here's where the timing hit hardest. Your parents didn't face this. Your kids won't face it in the same way. The collision is hitting our generation. The 50 to 70-year-old window that hits harder than anyone before or after. Your parents had pensions, predictable Medicare, Social Security that wasn't running out of money. Your kids will have time to adapt, decades to adjust. They're already planning differently because they watch what happened to us. The Equitable Financial Survey found that millennials feel responsible for their retirement in ways baby boomers never had to. They saw the collision coming. They're building differently. But you and I, well, you didn't get that warning. We didn't play by the rules that stopped working. That's not a moral failure. It's a timing problem. But we can still fix it if we can see it. So what do you actually control? Well, I'm going to give you one decision, not 10, just one. The families who come out ahead do one thing differently. They run the fire drill before the fire. I call it the family fire drill. And here's what I've seen. Families who do this don't just protect themselves. They sleep better. They stop carrying the weight of not knowing. And if something happens to you tomorrow, does your spouse know where the money is? Do your kids know the plan? Do you know theirs? Most families have no idea how quickly a health emergency can clean out savings account. One estate planning attorney put it this way: families get blindsided not because they didn't have assets, but because nobody knew where anything was when it mattered. The family fire drill has 3 parts, but it's one decision, the decision to actually do it. Part 1, visibility. Where is everything? Every account, every policy, every login, every document that matters. One place, both people know where it is. Not, I'll get to it. Not, it's somewhere in the filing cabinet. One document, updated, accessible. Both spouses can find it in 5 minutes if they had to. Bank accounts, investment accounts, insurance policy, life, health, home, auto, long-term care if you have it, debts, Social Security, and Medicare numbers, your doctor, your lawyer, your accountant. Where the will is, where the power of attorney documents are. If your spouse has a stroke tomorrow, can you access everything you need by tomorrow afternoon? If the answer is no, that's the first move. The Wall Street Journal reported that the first wave of great wealth transfer goes to surviving spouses, and Equitable found that 90% of women want an advisor who talks about more than just money. They want emotional peace of mind. That peace of mind starts with visibility, knowing where everything is before you need to find it. So part 2, ownership. Do you own something that grows while you sleep? Well, if not, you're on the wrong side of the 40% gap. Well, that gap isn't about income. It's about asset. Homeowners build equity while they sleep. Renters don't. Stock owners benefit from growth while they sleep. Non-investors don't. A small business you own throws off income while you sleep. Even a high-yield savings account is working for you overnight. This isn't about being rich. It's about having something, anything, that compounds. Vanguard's data makes it clear. If you put money into your retirement account at the age of 25 with modest contribution, compound interest does the heavy lifting. But if you start at 50, you're fighting uphill. Time is a multiplier, and you have less of it. That doesn't mean it's too late. It means every year matters more now. So the question isn't how much can I save? The question is, do I own anything that grows while I sleep? The 40% gap comes from ownership, assets that compound, passive growth. So if your only income is trading hours for dollars, you're sprinting on a treadmill that's speeding up. So part 3, the conversation. Have you said out loud what happens if one of you can't work, can't drive, can't make decisions? Well, these aren't comfortable conversations. That's why most families skip them. And that's exactly why the families who have them come out ahead. Well, here's what can't make decisions actually mean. Without a power of attorney, if your spouse develops dementia, you cannot access their account. You cannot sell the house. You cannot manage their investment. You cannot make medical decisions. You have to go to court, get a judge to declare them incapacitated, get appointed as guardian or conservator. That takes months, costs thousands, and happens while your spouse is declining and your savings are draining. One power of attorney document, signed, where you're both competent, solves this problem. But if you can't sign it after the stroke, you can't sign it after the diagnosis. It has to be done now, where you're thinking clearly while it feels unnecessary. So one financial planner said it perfectly. Good advisors talk about assets. Great advisors talk about family dynamics, aspirations, hopes, dreams, and concerns. So you don't need an advisor to have that conversation. You just need to have it. What happens if I die first? What happens if you die first? What happens if one of us needs care the other can't provide? Who makes medical decisions if I can't speak for myself? Do the kids know what we want? Do we know what they want? This isn't financial planning. This is family intelligence. And most families don't get to do it until something forces the conversation. Don't wait for the force. Have the conversation now. So that's the fire drill. One document, one conversation, one decision. So I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not selling anything. I study the collision point, where policy, AI, and aging hits families hardest, because that's where the blind side comes from. And this video exists because I wish someone had shown my family what I'm showing you now. So I started paying attention when this collision hit my own family, watching the gap between what we planned for and what actually happened. So watching the weight of the decision that came too late. The weight is why I do this now. So other families see it earlier. $84 trillion is about to transfer between generations. That's not a metaphor. That's the largest wealth movement in human history. Some families don't catch it. Most won't know it happened until the gap is locked in. So by the end of the decade, women will control the majority of that wealth. The first wave goes into surviving spouses. The second wave goes into the next generation. Where your family lands depends on what you do in the next few years. You have maybe 10 years in this window. That's a collision zone. What you do now, the visibility, the ownership, the conversation. That's what determines which side of the 40% gap your family ends up on. Social Security's 2.8% cost of living adjustment for 2026, it's the lowest in years. Healthcare costs are rising at 5 to 7%. The math is moving against you, but you still have time to move with it. If this hit home, here's where to go next. So in the next video, I'll show you the exact document I used for my own family's fire drill. 1 page, 30 minutes. Both spouses walk away knowing where everything is. You've seen the math. You know where the collision is. And now you know the one move that puts your family on the other side of it. Well, that's not information. That's power. You didn't get a warning, but you're getting one right now. And that changes the math. So see you in the next video.